All right, so my talk tonight is about I'll call it my adventure in double star observing.
Recording, yes.
What got me started in this was Ed Anderson had done a technical talk about double stars just about a year ago, in March. And I started looking into it. So, the thing that intrigued me was that we could observe these even in our very light polluted skies. So up to then, my focus on observing is kind of, you go out, you kind of look around the sky, this and that, somebody would point something out. But, there was never any real focus about what I was looking at. So this gave me a focus, so that, and it drove me to learn some new things that I hadn't come across. Right? So what is a double star? And very simply, a double star is a star when viewed with the naked eye or under very low magnification appears to be one star. When you increase the magnification, the star splits. That's in its simplest form. There's definitions that are more complex. So we have stars that are gravitationally bound, which are located near each other. And then we have optical doubles, right? So that's what we have for, that's what a double star is. So the Astronomical League has this double star observing program. What you have to do is the requirements for the program are to go out and observe 100 double stars. You have to sketch them, and you have to determine the position angle of the primary versus the secondary or companion star. To do all 100 observations, it takes about a year. You can push it if you'd like to get up early in the morning. But why do it? It's not a job. Have fun, right? The equipment requirements are relatively modest. I've been using a 80 millimeter refractor and 150 millimeter refractor, primarily using an 8-24 zoom eyepiece and a handful of fixed eyepieces when the zoom is not quite as sharp as I need, right? So as Astronomical League members, we are all able to participate in this program. So some of the challenges I faced in starting out with this program was, well, like with anything new, there's a lot of learning. You'll make a few mistakes. I had to go back and reobserve some stars in the beginning because I had missed some things that were needed. The program requires, again, the 100 stars to observe and sketch. The sketching is not complex at all. If you can draw a period, you can sketch one of these drawings, right? So all you're doing is drawing dots. It's not like trying to draw a nebula or a galaxy or anything like that, right? You're just basically drawing dots. I had to, I looked at the chart for these 100 double stars and kind of some strange names, and started looking it up, and there were all these catalogs, Struve catalog. Right? To me, I had never heard of that before. So I had to go investigate that, right? And there's the HD catalogs, and goes on and on and on, right? And then you had to find resources, right? So got a couple books, found some online references, and then determining how to determine the position angle, which I'll get into in a little bit. All right. So again, the requirements, you need to be a member of the Astronomical League, which we all are. The data you have to collect is the object name and associated with the Astronomical League number of the observation. You have to record your latitude and longitude, the date of your observation, time of your observation, either in local time or in UTC. Object description is kind of optional.
Are you sharing your screen? I'm not seeing it on.
You're not sure.
I don't know if people from home are seeing it.
No, I'm not seeing his screen either.
So you need to be in Zoom.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything.
Oh. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yep, now we're good.
It's shared.
It is. You are screen sharing.
Yeah.
Let me see if I'm seeing it.
There was a number 2 in the top left corner. Do you know what that was? Before?
Yeah, that was.
I'm
screen
seeing that, but I'm not seeing your presentation. Maybe you need to select.
I'm seeing slides.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, okay. Now this is the next slide.
That is working.
Okay. Let me see now if I can get back my screen. All right. Let's see, where are we? So we have to do the object description, which was optional. The size of your telescope that you're using, your eyepiece, seeing report, transparency report, and the sketch must be marked with indicating north or east-west indication. And you have to mark which is the primary and secondary star. From the document that I'm showing, which is from the Astronomical League, they're actually missing 2 bits of information in there, right? They don't show the position angle and the color designation. But if you read further somewhere down there, it's kind of hinted at. So, but it's needed. So what are we going to learn from this, right? So we're going to learn how to identify your directions in your telescope, how to, so basically a direction is like where is west, and that is done by the drift method, which we'll get into. And then position angle. So position angle is going to be somewhat dependent on how accurate your drawings are. And one of the requirements is that the estimated position angle has to be within 20 degrees of the accepted value that is, I guess, recorded, right? They say a description is encouraged, but it's optional, and also what colors of the primary and secondary stars. So sorry. All right, so to determine which way is west in your telescope, right? If you have a equatorial mount that tracks, right, you turn off your tracking. If you have an all-test mount, you just leave it sit and let the star drift. And this is in a refractor now I'm talking about. You let the stars drift out of your field of view. and that is the direction of west. So you mark that on your drawing, right? So you're doing a drawing with a circle that simulates what you're seeing in the eyepiece, right? So this is kind of my approach to observing, right? So the cloudy night double star form, which is one of the resources we use, suggested that this program should take about a year to complete. In my backyard, I have somewhat limited. Why does this keep changing? Oh, somewhat limited views, right? So I have kind of a northeast view. I have a south view that's about 90 degrees. Northeast is about 70 degrees, and I have about 90 degrees to the west. But most of them are very light polluted. My north view is heavily polluted from, I'm near the Smith Haven Mall. So a lot of nights I can't even see Polaris because it's washed out. So my alternative viewing areas are here at the Vanderbilt Planetarium or going down to Robert Moses. And Monday night I came up here, I was in the parking lot. It was actually a really good night. The seeing was really good for about an hour. So the equipment that I use, right? So again, I said I've been using a Celestron 80mm refractor, and I have a Astrotech 115 millimeter. It's the EDT. It's a triplet, right? An 8-24 zoom, handful of eyepieces. I have it on a Celestron CG4 equatorial mount that I've modified to work as Alt-Az with the slow motion controls. And I've been using the Celestron Star Sense Explorer Cradle, which does the plate solving with your phone, to find most of the stars, because star hopping is difficult, and that's putting it mildly. So this is kind of my setup that I go out and do in my backyard. So this is my 80mm scope set up on the tripod, my observing chair and table, right? So put the dew shield on, or the dew strap. So I tend to set it up in the evening, throw a big bag or towel over it so it doesn't get dewed, and then let it so it cools down when the evening comes, right? And this is my
What
115.
mount is that again? What mount for the telescope?
So I use it's a Celestron CG4. It's an equatorial mount. And it's been modified. I'll show you. So that's kind of how it looks. It sits in an Alt-Az configuration. If you really want to know how to do it, it's fairly simple. You just need a half round file. You got to file a little plate on one edge, and you just got to file the bottom edge of the mount just so that the tongue that you use for doing your pole alignment clears the edge of the mount so that it can go totally to 90 degrees. So it takes about 5 minutes to do, and then you've got a really nice Alt-Az mount. Yeah, so that's set up. That's all set up for observing, right? So resources. So these are the primary resources that I've used in assisting with working on this program, right? So Cloudy Nights has a dedicated double star forum. The people on there are extremely helpful. We have a number of people, one guy in London, another one's in Switzerland. These guys have been at it for years. They give you help. I've posted my drawings, and they've corrected me and said, no, you observed the wrong star.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and do it again, and they pointed me and said, you were close, but you missed. Nobody berates you. Everybody's very helpful. You have questions, ask. So that's it. There's a website called Stella Dapi, I believe it's pronounced. It's an interface. There's a gentleman that's on the Double Star forum. He created this interface. It sits in front of the WDC catalog. And at the end, I'll bring it up and we'll show it to you. If you download the WDC catalog, which I had done initially, there is so much data in there. It's so complex, and trying to extract anything out of it is tedious. His interface makes it very easy to get all the information. You have all the alternate names, you have the position angles, degrees of separation, when it was last observed officially. Is it a single double star, doubles, triples, quadruples? Some of them that are variable, he has charts that get generated with it, so it's extremely useful. The other one is a book. It's called Discovering Double Stars by Agnes Clark. I've exchanged some emails back and forth with her. You can order the printed book, or there's actually a free PDF that you can get too. So I bought the book, even though the PDF is there to support her work. I'm sure it took a really long time to produce. Stellarium is quite useful, as we all know. Go out and go find what you're looking for, or it helps with planning, right? And Sky Safari Pro is another one. So this is my own kind of doing. I created a spreadsheet, kind of OCD about this kind of stuff. I took the 100 stars, put it in, put the official names in, found the alternate names, where it is, what color is officially listed for it, what I observed, what months I'd find it in what area of my sky that I could observe it in, right? The official position angles, my observed position angle, right? Magnitude, that's not needed, but it's there. It helps you when you're looking, right? And the reported separation helps you find the star that's actually the double star at times, right? No, this got out of order. These are the two books that I use, right? So one is the star chart, the double star atlas, right? And the other one's the Discovering Double Stars by Agnes Clark. So this is my first rendition of my observing report. I had emailed it to the gentleman who does, I guess, who monitors this program, and will approve it or not. And he said, yep, no, that's good. It encapsulates everything we needed. I started posting this double star forum, and they're like, nah, you need to change that. So this is kind of what it ended up looking like, right? So a lot more detail in. I have like my position angle observed, what is reported. I write in how far off I was, right? My equipment that I use to start off with, right? So you see I have the sketching eyepiece. That's what I used, or what magnification was used when I was doing my drawing, right? Figure out what magnification it was, record the temperature, the wind, seeing, transparency, and if the moon, right? So here's my little drawing. Some of the suggestions I got from the Double Star Forum was, yeah, next to the official name, put what constellation it was in. I guess just for my own record, and then write in what some of the alternate names are. The 4 circles on the sides get used on occasion, not always. If it's a tight double star, or there's something else that I want to record during my observation, I usually end up in those fields. So there's some terms that, we need to record, right? So when we look at it, and I'll use an example, I was up here Monday night. One of the stars right now, that's my nemesis trying to split, is Rigel. Rigel was, for me, elongated. I could not split it at all. It just kind of looked like a pill. Maybe it looked like a peanut, right? Seeing, by the time I got to it, seeing wasn't all that great anymore. So I couldn't split it. There are stars. Actually, I came up here with 6 stars that I needed to observe. They had all been unresolved up till Monday night, and I ended up splitting them, all but one. So that's how I record it, and I record them, right? So if I get a Rigel that's marked as elongated and it's marked redo, so I come, I'll keep pushing at it until I get it. Yes, Ed.
What was the thing that was limiting you from resolving them? Was it seeing, not enough magnification? Just curious.
It's the seeing, right? So the one thing with double star observing, and I found out, is that seeing seems to be the limiting factor. A lot of times when you get stars that are close together, in the sense of Rigel, it's not really that close together, but the magnitude difference between the primary and the secondary. So you have to have a really clear night to be able to split them. One of the tricks somebody had said was to let the star drift out of the field, and as the primary star, so Rigel, starts to drift out of the field, the secondary star should pop up, because now you don't have that really bright star in your eye anymore. So you kind of try that a couple times, play with that, play with that, play with that. Hopefully you see a little dot pop out sometimes. No. Steve was with me back in, I think it was October. We were down at Robert Moses. There was, I can't remember the name of what it was. There's, I think it was in Pisces. It's like 1.4 degrees of separation. I had my 150 millimeter triplet that night, and I started observing it, and it was one star, and then all of a sudden the seeing just cleared up and it split, and it was like so obvious. Why wasn't this done? Why didn't we see this before? Yeah, so seeing has a big to do with splitting the stars. So one of the other aspects that need to be recorded is color. So if you've ever talked to people, people have different perceptions of color. Red is notoriously a problem, right? People look at a color and see different things or report different things, right? Color is also shifted based on your equipment. I've flipped around different eyepieces, and I can see how either the glass or the coatings shift the color, either shifted kind of a green tinge or a yellow tinge, or right. So you have to either learn your eyepiece, right, or when you get there, I'll swap an eyepiece around and go from an ortho to a regular Plössl or something like that, and try to determine when its colors aren't quite obvious, they're a little more subtle. Defocusing also helps, brings out some of the faint colors a little bit more, because now you got a blob, so your eye can pick it up a little bit better. That's one of the other tricks that I picked up from the group, right? So these are kind of the color spectrum. I've never really seen anything that red or that beautiful blue, right? And then some oranges, some faint reds. We get a lot of blue-white stars, stars that are tinted into the yellow area or orange. Right. So, position angle. This is where it seems, and if you look in the threads, this is where people seem to drop out of the program. There's actually a guy who actually just finished doing 1 year, observing all 100 stars, and he realized he did not record the position angle of any of his observings, and he has to go do it all again. So I've seen some really complex methods of determining this. I think some of the wording on it is you estimate the position angle, but estimating position angle doesn't get you in that 20 degrees, right? So what you first need to do is determine where west is, right? Let the star drift out of your eyepiece, right? And then you have to mark that on your drawing. But where is that, right? How do you know what that is, right? So, as I said earlier, on a manual mount, you let the star drift out. On a motorized mount, you turn off the motors and let it drift out of the field, right? North is 90 degrees clockwise. This is in a refractor from west, right? And then we'll start drawing. So I got a little bit ahead of here, right? And then I use a circle. So those are kind of the steps I go through, right? I draw a line to the primary star to the west, right? And then use a circle protractor to determine where north is, right? And then we draw a line through the center of the two stars, the primary and secondary, to the edge of the field. And then using the circle protractor, we measure the angle from north, right? So that's how we figure out the position angle, right? So to improve determining where west is, we can use a microguide or an astrometric eyepiece, right? They have this gradient engraved into it. So the way I was doing it was pointing 0 to the north, right? So it's an easy reference point. You let the star drift out of the field and you watch and you figure out what degree it is, right? Now, how accurate is that? Yeah, within a couple degrees, right? So these eyepieces are nearly impossible to find. Meade made one, Celestron made one, Bader made one. They're no longer manufactured. The last one I saw on cloudy nights went for $100. I don't think they were that much new. People have called Celestron and Bader. They're taking a list of names. I guess when they get enough people who want them, they might do a small run again, but there doesn't seem to be much interest, so they're not doing it, right? They're not manufacturing them. So one of the other tricks I've been using is I printed out this gradient on a piece of paper and I laminated. And I guess this might be a photographer's trick from somewhere along the way. But what I do is I put my right eye, my primary eye, observe the star, in the eyepiece with my right eye, and I hold a chart next to the eyepiece, this gradient, and observe it through my left eye. And when you stare, you get your brain to look at them equally. They kind of blend together. And you can read it without the eyepiece. And I've been practicing it, and it actually works quite well. So, on to observing, right? So, when I go out and observe, my workflow is I do some pre-planning, right? So I look at the list of stars I need to observe. I find something that's in the sky that night, and I start filling out my my observing report, right? I put in a date, I pick the stars that I'm going to observe. I go look up the position angle that's reported, I write the number on top. That's the astronomical lead observing number, right? So I start out with a blank sheet. This is what I start out with, right? I get stellarium, find out where it is in my sky. Is it going to fit between my trees during the hours I want to go out and observe between, 7 and 11? Usually this time of year, about 2 hours is all I can stand outside before I'm frozen and then have to put away everything. So I try to go out with anywhere from 5 to maybe 10 sheets in my hand. Some things don't work out, some things do. Most of the time I get 4 or 5 done. All right, so we go out, and now we're out observing, right? So we go and locate the stars, right? We observe it, right? We draw the star field, right? We draw the primary and the secondary star. We draw the star field in it. You see there marked in the circle, that was the degrees of reference that I saw where the star drifted out of the field. So that's my mark, right? I go use my watch or my phone with the weather app. I record the temperature, what the Weather Bureau says the temperature is in my town, right? The wind, make an estimate of what you're seeing in transparency is, write down your colors, and what eyepiece you ended up using to do the drawing. So that's your observing. I usually spend anywhere, if I find the stars fairly easily, whatnot, I usually spend 15 minutes or so between drawing and tweaking them out to keep it in focus, and trying to pick up the star field so I have something relevant to mark it against.
Mark, you have a little circle. I think it says 325 degrees.
Right. So
Um,
that's the reference of where I saw the stars drift out of the eyepiece.
And that would be
So that would
normally
designate the
270,
west.
but west is 270, right?
Right. It depends where you're looking in the sky, right? This is right. I'll show you when we get down. You'll
Okay,
understand where we're
okay.
going, right? So that's the reference mark, right? And that's in my field of view, right? You look at that circle, right? The west drift was, yes, Steve. Right. So the center 2 stars, yes. Up to about the 11 o'clock. Yeah, that's the way it drifted out of my eyepiece. Right, so it drifted out of my eyepiece towards 11 o'clock.
So you sketch the stars first, as
Yep.
you saw it, and then determine.
Determine where west is, yes.
Change,
What's that?
and then the angle would change. Far enough.
Yes, that would be a different angle, yeah. Okay, so now this is, so this I do the next day, right? So I start now going through my drawing, right? So step 1, right? You see the arrow with the 1, right? So step 1 is my 0 reference, and that's the reference I used with the eyepiece with the 0 pointed up, right? So, and I have a right angle, put it at the bottom of the paper, draw the line through the primary star, right? And that's my 0 line. Use a circle projector. And we go and we mark where 325 degrees was. That's where I saw it go. Okay. Now that becomes west. Okay. Go 90 degrees from there, and that's where north is. All right. And then the last line is position 4. Step 4 is you draw a line through the primary and the secondary star. That's the line that goes to about 4 o'clock. All right. Those are the markings you make on your drawing, right? So I took a picture of it here. This is with the protractor. Right, so we measure from north to where that line is, right? And you can see there it's at about 65 degrees. So that's the angle that I determined by my drawing, right? So that's why I say the two stars that you're drawing, take your time drawing those, because that's where your accuracy comes from. The rest of the star field, you know, is how much time you want to spend and how accurate you want to make it. Right, so here that's the angle we measured. You can see there it was 65 degrees. The official report was 64 degrees. So my drawing was,
That's impressive.
yeah,
I think the spec said within 20 degrees.
within 20 degrees,
So you
yes.
nailed it.
Now,
Yeah.
I've had some that I've gone and done and, you know, they've been 25 degrees. And I go back out and re-observe again and it's like, well, yeah, I observed right, but you realize real quickly that the size of your dot, when it gets to the edge of the field, it's pretty big, right? You draw a line one way or the other and it's 10, 15 degrees. So you got to be accurate with it, right? So yeah, so I got lucky with my sketch on this, right? I got within a degree, right? So then I sit down and, you know, I try to do this the next day because I remember, you know, all the things, right? So it's like, yeah, it was an easy split. Colors were nice, right? You know, my own comment was it felt a lot colder than 47 degrees out, right? And it was a nice field of stars, you know, at lower power. So some stars you find in a like, it almost seems like it's a dead field. There's no stars around. Some of them, you know, are really beautiful fields. Like I was doing Orion the other night, Monday night, and some of the stars were just beautiful with all the stars around it. So do that. Then I update my, I'll update my spreadsheet, right? And I file my sketch away. I have a notebook. If anybody wants to look at it, I brought my notebook with me after the meeting, but I file it away in my notebook, right? So that's kind of what we do. That's what the program is all about. So as we see, it's really not that hard. I think determining the position angle, the way I've been doing it, is probably the simplest I've seen. You know, like I said, I've seen some really complex discussions about how to do it. All right. And that's it. Now, if you want to see, I can bring up Adobe if you want to see that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
What that looks like. So you get to see the interface. I mean, this Adobe is the tool for doing double stars. Let's see if I can. Yeah, man. Not quite. Here we go. All right. So this is the interface, right? This is the login, right? So this is the gentleman in Italy wrote this interface that sits in front of the Washington double star catalog. This is kind of the home base. You can look at the database. You can actually do searches based upon your setup, right? So you can put in your information, right? So you can put in what your scope is, your diameter, your focal length. You can set up all different things to say whether or not what you're looking at is even observable, right? But here's the home one. So we can pick one. I was using 86 PSC, right? That was the drawing I had, right? So here it is. So this is the information that it draws out of the database, right? So here is the position angle that was last officially recorded into the database, 64 degrees. The separation. Right. Here's the colors. Right. If we go down, it gives you all the different catalogs that this is recorded in, what their names were, which is real interesting. Right, and then here's all the observations that were made, and the dates, 2007 all the way to 2018. Let's see what else is of interest there. If you do have an Altax mount and you're doing it, you have all your coordinates here, so you can find it that way. So it's really cool. So, here we see, it says here, it's a quadruple system. And you see the magnitudes, right? The separation, I don't know if I'll ever be able to see this one. Separation is 0.2. The scope doesn't resolve that small.
Is Philadelphia a paid subscription?
No, it's free. Solidop is free.
So when you make your equatorial mount, alt as, you can't use
I
There-
can't use the.
any coordinates.
No, so I'm
Okay.
using the StarSense Explorer cradle,
I'm sorry?
the StarSense Explorer cradle.
Yeah, right,
I try to star hop,
right.
if you get a good night, like Orion up here Monday night, it was good, right? So I write some of my notes, right? So it's like, forget the name of it, the star on the belt, the rightmost star, right? So I make a note on the sheet. It's the third star on the right on Orion's belt, right?
Oh,
So I
right.
know exactly where to look for it, right? So I have a red dot finder, so I can point right to it. I
Right,
didn't need the plate solving, right? I make reference notes. So you go around and you can hunt and find it, but when push comes to shove, a lot of them you just can't see. And I rely on the cradle to find them.
right.
And that was one of the things too, when I spoke to the gentleman who mounts the program, he goes, I told him what I was doing. And he was like, yeah, okay, as long as you're not using a go-to mount,
Oh, right.
right? You're doing a push to, you understood what predicament that I'm in. I'm in like, portal 7-8, I can't even see, Polaris most nights. He's like, all right, I get it.
Yeah, right.
So, all right, so that's the interface. So if you're into double stars, this is the place to go to. And there is a way, and I can't remember off the top of my head now, there is a way to generate a report. So, you can put in, I think you can search by the constellation. And let's see, if we go, let's see if I remember how to do this. So you pick Orion, right? Here you go. And it gives you all the double stars that are in Orion. Lots of stars.
Do you pick 100 double stars, or do they tell you which 100 they want?
They tell you which 100 they want.
Okay,
right? So once you get out of the program, if you want to continue observing double stars, this here is actually a good way to do it, right? Like I showed you the setup before. You put in what your telescope is and your limitations are. And when you do this search, it will only show you the ones that are, there's a way to set it up so that it will only show you the ones that are observable for you based upon your equipment.
So if you're going to find them from a constellation, let's say Auriga, how do you begin in terms of knowing where the star is in the constellation?
Well, that's why I have the star chart,
Oh, okay.
right? There's a star chart that,
Are
just
you
for
using the
double star.
Cambridge double
yeah,
star?
the Cambridge double star,
Oh, okay.
right? So you can go there and they have them marked,
Oh, okay.
right? So,
And this is.
you know, I've done it in between where like, well, kind of like November and December, I was waiting for Orion to get high enough in the sky for me that it would clear the houses and trees, right? So I go find another constellation and I would come here and say, okay, I'm going to search for, I know at 8 o'clock at night, I don't know, whatever, pick a constellation in the south because that's a comfortable view for me, right? And I go search and I pick out a series of these, right? Write them down on a piece of paper and, you know, and I go out with a stack of paper and I start observing them. And I have another book that I have my observations, right?
But this list has, if you weren't using a star chart, this list has coordinates.
Yeah, this has all the coordinates. You could print this out and then use it, right?
But he can't use the coordinates because the mount is no longer in equatorial.
Right, but if you had an equatorial mount, you could use these.
Right.
I mean, I can always flip it back to an equatorial mount if I needed to.
Yeah.
You can also go to something like Stellarium if you're using Valdez,
Yeah,
and it'll give you a continuous update of the Valdez coordinates.
Oh, right. You click on info.
yeah,
And,
which I've
and the
done
same
with,
with
you know,
Sky
you stick
Safari.
the level on the top of the scope and you point it
Right.
up and it's okay, it's supposed to be over there and you hunt around a little bit and you find it, you know, a little
Right.
wider. So, yeah, this is the Bible of finding double stars. And there's more double stars than you'll ever observe in your lifetime.
Right.
Yes, Ed?
Mark, I noticed that you're using the Zoom eyepiece to do your observations. I use a Zoom also, but I wanted to know, why you selected that eyepiece.
The Zoom,
Because you're always talking about how great the
because Ed
moderate
said
to
it's the best
24.
eyepiece to use. No, well, that's how it started. But it does make it easy to, find the star and then zoom in and split it, right? Now, anybody who does photography knows zooms are cool, right? They're lightweight, they cover a multitude of focal lengths. But if you really want the sharp image, you got to go to a fixed lens, right? So the same thing, I have a stack of fixed focal length eyepieces that if I really want to observe the star sharp, I'll say, okay, it's split at, you look at it 8 millimeters, right? I'll pull it out and I'll drop in my 7 millimeter eyepiece, and now this thing is tack sharp.
What is your 7 millimeter eyepiece?
Oh God, I've gone through a series of eyepieces, right? Ortho eyepieces seem to be the eyepiece of choice for most double star observers.
Wow.
The problem is, call it the problem, it's got a 40-degree field of view, right? And when you're trying to observe a double star and do a drawing, it's in and out of your field in seconds, especially when you get up to any kind of magnification, right? So right now I'm using a Celestron, what is it called? The XL LX series, which is a 60-degree field of view, so you get a little bit better. They're nice, they're sharp edge to edge, and they don't cost a fortune used. right? You pick them up for 50 to 60 bucks used. You know, which is about the price you'll pay for a really nice ortho. My favorite orthos are the University Optics HDs. I think it was the last series that they made. The coatings on them were exceptional. I had a bunch of different ones through the University Optics. They're really early ones, and then 3 or 4 different series. But the HDs were really sharp, really nice coatings, without any color shifting, I'll say.
And are you buying those new or used?
Used, they're not made anymore.
Oh, okay.
University Optics doesn't exist anymore. I think they went away in the 90s. I think.
They have triple star system too, or just double?
No, they have all triple star. They have triple star systems. There's one I should have bought the. When you click on them, the one I was done earlier. This one here, right? Because this one here is actually a quadruple. Right? And sometimes, yeah, I think on some of the variable stuff or gravitational bound ones, they'll have a chart. You know, you were talking about Sirius with the pub, right? How it has its orbit. Let me see. Is Sirius in here? How do you spell it? SIRUS? IUS? So let's see, there's this, here you go. Right, so this will show you, you can find the dates. Where are we? 2023. Right, so this is where it is, right? And if you look, it is a little over, looks like, oh, a little over 11 degrees separation.
Yeah, between
Arc seconds, I'm sorry, not degrees. Yep, so that's its orbit.
I think the margins of the 2023 this year.
Yep. It might be, I don't know. Print it out and draw some lines on it. But yeah, this is a very useful site.
And what star is that? I'm sorry, I missed
This is
it.
Sirius.
Oh, serious.
Mark, could you go back 2 screens? Because this goes to Frank's question about like how can you tell?
Oops, where did you want to go to? Where I was with Orion?
Perhaps it was Orion. If it was constellation you were on. Okay, so like here, the very first star, that's a quadruple star,
Okay,
right? Because it's got one name, and then the next 3 entries are the same exact coordinates.
yep, so that would be, so if we show it, right? Yep, so that's a quadruple system.
So you
Yes, actually 5
could you
stars, not
scan a
4.
prior chart and see everything that's a triple or a quad,
Yep.
because they're all listed together.
Mm-hmm.
You're very observant.
Yeah, and then,
I
you know,
didn't notice that.
they give, you know, there's some hints here, theoretical limits. This one is separable. Some of them will say unviewable. You know, you can't split them. So yeah, it's a good tool to look at before you go out. Give you.
Based on the equipment that's put in.
Yes. Yeah, if you don't put anything in, it will just show you the raw data. I'm sorry? I don't know.
What was the question, Dave?
Scroll down a bit more.
There are 5 stars in the system, but his scope can only
Do you know what the theoretical limit of your 115 millimeter scope is in terms of
It's
separating?
just over 1 arc second.
1 arc second.
There's a formula to do it. I think mine is like 1.1 or 1.01. I forget what the number was.
Theoretical.
That's theoretical, yeah. Yes,
See, like the middle on the left side, this double is not visible. Okay, that means it's binary stars. They actually revolve one another.
okay,
Yeah. Otherwise, it was like two stars together that both in the same line of sight that's seen from Earth, and so they really far apart. Otherwise, it's binary. That's when the two stars revolve one another.
yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting field of study. I mean, I've got still so much to learn about it.
That's cool, though. I mean, all the stuff you learn from deciding to pursue this.
Yeah,
And then that there's a forum, of course, but
Yeah.
who knew that that was there, right?
yeah, I, never realized it until I started looking. Oh, so one big hint. If people who are big users of stellarium, you put a star that's in the Struve catalog into stellarium and you won't find it,
Wow.
right? It won't be, right? You have to put an asterisk, you got to put a star, asterisk in front of the STF designation. And then stellarium will find it and most likely give you either the HID or HD catalog number. That threw me for the longest time until I found somebody that hinted to it.
Wow.
And that's why this came, it's like, okay, I can't find STF. Let me find another name, right? And then, Stellarium had it, but I'm like, threw me for the longest time. Why doesn't it have the Struve catalog in it? And you go look it up and yeah, the box is checked. Why can't I find it? It's star, the star. I don't know. But somebody just recently said, that's the trick to make Stellarium find something in the Struve catalog.
That spreadsheet at the bottom of this page there's an S column with two stars. Is that by any chance connected to the two asterisks you're talking about?
I don't
You
know.
see that?
Yeah, I see that. I don't know. Maybe it is.
Yeah, does S mean true? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I could ask the gentleman, he's on the list. I mean, I've emailed him a couple times about some things. Really how to use this because this web interface is quite complex and there's so much you can do with it. I mean, I've just scratched the surface of what I can do with this interface.
But it is cool to go out with a purpose.
Yes, and that was, to me, with any hobby I've ever had, you kind of can meander around. I always need a focus, right? I don't know what you want to call it, but
You're one of those guys.
I'm one of these guys that has to have a goal, right? I have to have a goal, otherwise you just kind of meander around and never do something, right? So this focused me on one thing. Yes.
One of the things you brought up in the beginning of the presentation, but worth mentioning again here, is if you're still fairly new to this hobby, you don't have that big telescope, this is a perfect thing to pursue. In a 3, 4, 5-inch scope, there's a bazillion double stars out there that you can split.
Yep.
And pursue a program like this and accomplish so much.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I initially I started out just using, they said you could use a 3-inch scope. They actually said I think a 2.5 to 3-inch scope, right? And you should be able to do all this. And I'm like, haha, yeah, not on Long Island. But I've been doing most of this with the 80 millimeter scope, and I mean the Celestron 80 millimeter scope that comes with the StarSense Explorer. That's from it's really their Omni line, and they strap the Star Sense cradle onto it, right? So it's a really cheap scope. I mean, it's like $140 scope. But I've been doing most of it with that scope, so it's very doable.
Oh, I thought you were doing this with the Astrotech.
Well, so far there's only 2 stars that I've had to use it for.
Wow, so this was done with the 80
Most of it's
millimeter.
been done with the 80 mil, and if you look at my chart, I had the Star Sense 102. So I've been bouncing around. I've gone back and redone some of them with the 80 millimeter.
Wow,
But there's only 2 stars so far that I had to use the 115 for.
that's cool.
And I've actually set up both scopes in the yard some nights side by side and gone after them to compare them. And yeah, I can split it in the 115. Yep, I can split it in the 80 also. Right?
So do you put the 80 on the Altaz mount, or you use a different mount?
So if I do both, I put the 115 on the Altaz mount, and then I change the dovetail on the 80, and I put a Swiss Archer and stick it on a photo tripod.
Oh, wow. Man, that's hardcore, photo tripod. Wow. I mean, because you can't make subtle adjustments.
No, you can't make subtle adjustments, but I
Yeah,
mean, it's,
wow,
I don't have another mount to use.
right.
Mark, if this would be like a binary star, you would see a diagram, right? Like you saw in Sirius.
I would believe so.
Yeah.
I don't know when or why those get generated. That's one of the things I'm not familiar with.
And it also show how many years.
Right, it will show what year it is, where it is in its orbit around the primary star. Yes, Ed.
Just another, for someone who is thinking about, pursuing double stars, if you go out onto cloudy nights, there, as you pointed out, it's a great resource. And there are threads on cloudy nights discussions on colorful double stars.
Yes,
In other words, this one is blue and this one is yellow. This one is pink and this one is white. And you
Yeah.
get some really gorgeous combinations.
yeah. So that's a good point.
And
So
of course, everybody knows Alberio, which is just beautiful to look at.
So that's a good point. So on the Double Star Forum, people have composed spreadsheets of, you name it, right? Colorful double stars, all white, come up with some idea. Somebody's created a spreadsheet of double stars.
Binocular double star.
Yeah, binocular double stars.
That is one of the programs, right? Is binocular.
Yes,
double
you can do
stars?
this. You can do this program also with binoculars.
Right.
And it's a different list.
I remember starting this just because I was curious, and I think I started in the fall, and then when it got cold, I abandoned it. But the fun thing was to not know what I was expecting to see, and every once in a while I'd hit one of those colorful doubles, and that was like, oh wow, look at that! I didn't know what that was going to be there.
There are some gorgeous doubles.
Yeah.
Reds. You find a star out there that's red and orange, a red and an orange one, or the other night, I forget which one it was. It was like blue and red.
Wow.
Right? And it's like, wow,
Huh.
that took me by surprise.
Mark, was
So
that,
yeah, I've found it to be a very interesting program so far. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It's not that hard to do. If you can draw a dot, draw a period. you can do the sketching.
Sam Storch has a question.
was the blue and red one by any chance
Yes, Sam.
in Ophiuchus?
Good.
Want that again?
Go ahead, Sam.
Was the blue and red one by any chance Ras
Oh, sure.
Aljathi in Ophiuchus?
Sam, say the question again.
Was the blue and red one Ras Aljathi in Ophiuchus?
I honestly can't tell you off the top of my head.
What was his
Okay.
question?
I kind of stumbled across it. It wasn't what I was looking for.
The other question is, as you chew your way through the
What was
list. of
Sam's question?
stars, as you chew your way through the list for the program.
Mark,
Is
Wait,
there something
he's-
that's fixed in your
oh, is Sam
mind?
talking? We can't tell.
Oh, I can hear.
I can't.
All right, never mind.
Go ahead. Sam, go ahead.
As you went through the list of stars in the program, are there any that you said, well, I got to remember that one. That's a showpiece I want to show to other people again?
Yes, and I've marked them on my sketches. I can't give you an example off the top of my head, but they've been marked and they're gonna go back on a chart.
Sam's question was, as Mark went through it, were there certain ones that he put marks around and said, wow, I got to remember these and show them to other people? And Mark's answer was, yeah, he has a list.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to, let me see here.
Good morning.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Sam, can you stop the recording? I made you host.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,